In today's society, when we hear news about crime, theft, and murder, it's typically normalized. We've come to accept these everyday tragedies as some sort of normalcy in our lives. And when it's time to look for a resolution, we decide to blame those who live in poverty. However, we don't have to accept this normalcy. And there are things that could be done, infrastructures that could be built, and programs that could be created to help our communities. Gang crime is a major issue in our area, but with the appropriate tools, assistance, these problems could be dealt with. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jasmine. I'm here with Abigail and Jesus, and today we're covering the topic of gang crime. To go more into depth, we are going to be talking about the topics of gang violence, narcotics, and vandalism. Have you ever waken up in the middle of the night with cops right in front of your house, searching for someone, or ever seen a whole bunch of cops raiding a house? Well, gang crime is a major issue in our area, without a doubt, but with the appropriate tools and assistance, these problems could be dealt with. Today, we're going to be exploring the different crimes in the Tulare County, from the narcotics to the gang violence to the vandalism. Here in Visalia, neighborhooding city Goshen, there have been many drug busts and as well as current ongoing investigations regarding large amounts of narcotics. These crimes usually involve those who come from low poverty areas. Not only that, but the number of crimes regarding narcotics is rising. According to news article Operation Trailblazer, 3 arrests made in Visalia, triple homicide by Cheyenne Romero during the investigation Operation Trailblazer that was dedicated to find 3 teen killers, which were found. Officials of Tulare County Sheriff's Office put out that deputies have found a huge drug trade that was not only just in Visalia, but across 3 states as well as city in Mexico. The number of street gang activities in the Tulare County area is at an all-time high. Crimes are being made left and right, and the 2 most popular street gangs that rival against each other are the Norteños and Sureños. Oftentimes, members from these gangs come into conflict with each other over territory or drug trades. However, these conflicts may result in fatalities due to the gun violence, which raises red flags for community members and the community itself for its reputation. According to news article that Street Gangs Cartel Strong in Tulare County, on January 16, 2023, approximately around 3:30 a.m., reports of gunshots were made in the city of Goshen. It was believed that there was a shootout in progress due to the amount of ammunition that was being fired. When deputies arrived on the scene, they discovered 6 deceased victims. Rest in peace to those who lost their lives. These victims were executed in assassination style, which no doubt about it made this case gang related. Due to a drug raid a week prior, officials from Tulare County Sheriff's Office believe that this case had something to do with members from local gangs or even cartel members. Vandalism here in Visalia and the surrounding cities happen every single day, from the gang markings to the breaking into properties. These activities usually come from those who are gang affiliated or those who just roam the street. Visalia is rated F grade for vandalism, which means that this crime is much higher than the average city in the United States. Depending on which side you're from or at, chances of being a victim as high as 1 in 36 and low as 1 in 118. Gang crime is a major issue in our area. There are many dangers that come with living in these areas, from the gun, violence, narcotics, and vandalism. However, despite these dangers, there's beauty within. I do believe with the right methods, resources, and rehabilitation, we as a community could help make certain areas better, not just for the community and reputation, but for the youth and upcoming generations as well. Next is Abigail with the causes and effects.
Thank you, Jasmine. According to Justice.gov, 13% of all homicides in the U.S. are attributed to gangs. Gang crime is a major issue in our area, but with the appropriate tools and assistance, this problem can be dealt with. Stories of crimes like these have become more common in our local news, but where do these problems come from? Some of us might have had some experiences. Personally, I've experienced shootings down the street while visiting family in the bad part of town. While discussing, Today I will discuss the cause and effects of some of the more common gang-related crimes in our area. First, what are the causes and effects of gangs? Some of the most common and easy to fix causes are poverty, peer pressure, and adverse childhood experience. Poverty and despair go hand in hand as a cause because people who have always lived in poverty with parents who have lived in poverty often see no chance of ever getting a decent job, leaving their poor neighborhood, or getting an education. They're surrounded by drugs and gangs, and joining a gang gives them a sense of belonging. Or when faced with a lack of money, they may turn to crime to support their families. By committing thefts and dealing drugs, gang members can make a relatively large amount of money. Peer pressure. Gangs intentionally recruit teenagers because younger people are very susceptible to peer pressure. If they live in a gang-dominated area or go to a school with strong gang presence, they might find that many of their friends are joining gangs. Many teenagers resist the temptation of gang membership, but for others, it is easier to follow the crowd. So peer pressure is a cause for gang membership in affluented areas. Exposure to adverse childhood experience. In the article, Local Violence Leads to Aggressive Behaviors Years Later by Heidi Splee in December 2003, this study aimed to understand gang membership and ACE prevalence among a community-based sample of children and young people, CYPs. Contrasting three groups, gang members, periphery, and non-gang involved. The study showed gang members were significantly more likely to have experienced homelessness than non-gang involved, and gang members were significantly more likely to have been a victim of serious assault, less serious assault, any violence, and to have committed any violent act in the last year than non-gang involved CYPs. Now, what are the effects that these gangs have on our community? Gang violence affects the community with an increase in crime rates and casualties. According to Soumya Karmulanga, in Understanding the Massacre in Goshen, gang violence is common across the Central Valley. 3 of its counties have the highest homicide rates in California in 2021, with Tulare County ranked 3rd, and crime rates rising in 11 of the state's largest counties, with 3 seeing an increase of at least 10%, and Fresno being faced with the biggest jump of 24.1%. Narcotics are another effect of gangs, since gangs bring drug trade into the community. This accessibility to drugs leads to addiction and possible overdoses. A common gang grooming technique is to supply young people with free drugs, then later demand payment so that they're in debt. In the article, Adolescent Gangs, Substance Misuses and Exposure to Adverse Childhood Experience by Emily Witzel, Caroline Hopper, and Dee Harridge of spring of 2021, in comparison to non-gang involved individuals, members were significantly more likely to misuse all substances, amphetamines, cocaine, ecstasy, acid, cannabis, any drugs, and alcohol, excluding glue. Finally, vandalism and graffiti are an effect of gangs in our area as well. These may seem like a lesser evil than the previous effects, but graffiti and vandalism are an early sign of gang activity in a community. Gangs mark their turf with graffiti in their colors, displaying gang symbols. This petty crime affects the quality of life in a community since it can damage or destroy things people care for or need. In conclusion, gang crime has been a major issue in our area for a while. Because of poverty and peer pressure, people join gangs, which leads to gang-related crimes like graffiti, drug trade, and acts of violence. With the appropriate tools and assistance, we can reduce the number of gang initiations and hopefully decrease the number drastically. Now, here's Jesus with the proposed solutions and feasibility.
Thank you, Abigail. As my colleagues have shown, gang violence is not something that can be ignored because the consequences forever impact low-income and underprivileged communities. Gang crime is a major issue in our area, but with the appropriate tools and assistance, this problem can be dealt with. Going forward, I will propose possible solutions, their feasibility, and how to implement them. The proposed solutions. The first proposed solution is more funding for infrastructure and community-based violence intervention programs. According to an article titled Community-Based Violence Interventions Proven Strategies to Reduce Violent Crime by Akau Amani, who is a director of criminal justice reform at the Center of American Progress, some communities saw a reduction in violence by as much as 60% when implementing community-based violence intervention programs. These programs include services such as hospital-based violence intervention, which is a program that connects victims of trauma centers and emergency rooms, street outreach. These are programs that are led by mentors of the community who have experience in gang crime to help mentor the youth in a better direction. Violence intervention, which is partnerships with local law enforcement to help build trust and accountability on both ends of the community. And lastly, environmental design, programs to restore public spaces where the community can gather and feel safe. Unfortunately, Akua Moning also states that insufficient resources and funding is one of the biggest challenges in implementing these programs to more communities. The next proposed solution is more education, awareness of the issue, and for the community. On the next slide, the feasibility. How feasible are these proposed solutions? Well, with community involvement, I believe that increased funding as well as awareness through social media is an incredibly feasible thing to do. And then how will we implement this on the next slide? We will get we'll educate communities on the importance of voting. Our job is to elect our officials on fuck, sorry. Our job is to elect our officials who have our community's best interest in mind. And secondly, we need to encourage our own communities and the youth to attend city council meetings. On these two screenshots here, it shows the surplus of the city of Visalia from their 2022 to 2023 mid-year financial report during their city council meeting on April 17th, 2023. As you can see here, even with the reserve of 13.8 million for emergencies, the city still has a surplus of $60.7 million in savings. And then on the next screenshot, it shows that a mere 2% of the surplus is given to youth programs, which is only $273,350. So as you can clearly see, there is money in the city available for programs, but without community involvement, without community involvement, the city, it's not pressured to fund these programs, and instead they like to save it for a rainy day. Now, the bottom screenshot is from an article titled Gang Prevention and Overview of Research and Programs published by youth.gov, which does an amazing job at giving in-depth perspective on the issue at hand. Lastly, utilizing social media to spread awareness for existing programs like the Boys and Girls Club is very important, as well as needing to mandate information to be provided to every welfare, social security, and medical offices for the recipients that come in, so they as well can be aware and educated of the possible programs that they can utilize to take advantage of for their children. Gang crime is a major issue in our area, but with appropriate tools and assistance, this problem can be dealt with. We often forget our neighbors. We ignore things because it doesn't concern us, and we need to remember empathy because we can only grow and progress together. In the words of the great and late Martin Luther King Jr., this country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. Thank you for your time.